All right, welcome back. So the title of this mini lecture is Porfirio Diaz. There's a lot to understand about Porfirio Diaz, and we're going to be talking about 5 big things, broad things that you should understand as you go to do more research and reading about him and about his leadership at the end of the 19th century in Mexico. All right, let's get into this. So first off, Porfirio Diaz was someone who was connected to Mexico's opposition to the invasion by France of Mexico in the early 1860s. He's at the Battle of Puebla in May of 1862, is a general in these forces here. So he deserves to be recognized as such. However, perhaps the second thing for us to know about him is that he opposes the successor to Benito Juarez, and he will essentially take power in 1876 and set up a government in his image, which largely is going to leave the average individual in Mexico, basically by the wayside. Now, this government is known as the Porfiriato, and it is a government that was established, the phrase that is usually associated with this in English is by bread and the club, right, or pan y palo. Now, the third thing for us to note is the government that he establishes, the structure that he establishes, the administration that he establishes. It does a couple of things. The first is he will support large-scale foreign investment in Mexico as a means of facilitating economic development and industrialization. Remember, around the world, not just in Mexico, but the second half of the 19th century was an era of profound industrialization, which remakes communities globally. And there are positive effects, but there are also going to be very negative effects to this. But he is someone who is pushing that foreign investment. Perhaps the most crucial part of that foreign investment is going to be railroads. So in 1876, when he takes power, you're looking at around 500 miles of rail really across the entirety of Mexico. By the time you get to the end of his reign, you're looking around 15,000 miles or more of rail lines in Mexico. All right. The other thing with this governmental structure for us to know is that intellectuals are brought into the bureaucracy of the administration to really become agents of modernization, right? So, in a way, he's buying off his critics and getting them to be doing PR for him. Fourthly, the average individual in Mexico isn't necessarily going to benefit all that well from the Porfiriato, and many, if not most, of course, hate him. Now, some of this, or much of this, is partly because of the effects of industrialization and modernization for individuals in rural areas throughout Mexico. Particularly, for example, if you are indigenous, especially in the Central Plateau area, many of your villages and communities, many of these are going to be dispossessed, many of these are going to be destroyed and taken away. And so for the average individual living in these rural communities, be they indigenous or not, again, Porfiriato, Porfirio Diaz, this ain't great. Fifth, this process of modernization and industrialization, again, has such negative effects compounding the inequalities that existed in Mexico prior to 1876, so that what you will see is a revolution by about 1910. All right. Thank you so very much.